You knew what was going to happen. And it took forever to get to the payoff because it was like, okay, they have this many days to prepare because the mother world is going to come back and they're going to kill everybody, right? And so basically they got 5 days to prep or whatever, and then they got to fight them off. And like that's the entire movie. You knew what the whole movie was going to be. And it played out exactly like how you thought it would.
It's a bug's life in space. It is literally a bug's life. It is the story of a bug's life in space. You gotta.
And welcome back to the Movie Dads podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Howie.
I'm Kyle.
That is Kyle. Kyle, we're back. Episode number 46. The Movie Dads podcast. Big premiere. Movie of the week. The Zack Snyder Netflix exclusive sci-fi epic Rebel Moon Part 2. The Scargiver. Is this the first time we've done a movie and its sequel? I think it is.
That's right. I was thinking about that before the episode of like, no, we're actually doing both of these. We don't usually do that. So,
well, it doesn't happen very often where
you had part 1, part 2.
2 movies have come out since we've started this podcast, because that would be pretty fast tracked.
This is true.
That is true.
It's true.
So Netflix exclusive, big premiere movie of the week, something you can watch at home now on streaming. But as we do normally with a big premiere movie, we will, when we get into the details, we will give a spoiler warning before we talk about the spoilery parts of the movie when we do that segment. But if you're watching us on YouTube, please click the like and subscribe. Click the bell so you get notifications when a new episode comes out. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Leave us a comment. We appreciate that. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you can listen to us on many different podcast networks, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, along with many others. You can also find some of our short clips and videos on social media at Movie Dads Pod, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. New episodes are available streaming, audio, and on YouTube on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. But we're movie dads. We've got movie kids. Kyle's softball season has started back up, which is always a fun time. So we're back at the ball fields a couple times every week. Reagan's back playing softball again. 3 games in so far. They haven't been so good lately. They've had a little tough time. So the team has struggled. Now, I will say the weather has sucked for a couple of those games. It has been like bundle up. It's cold and windier than crap, which does kind of make it hard to play softball. And we've already had 1 rain out. Probably going to have another one tomorrow. So lots of rain out there. But it is good to be back at softball. And then the only problem is usually me and my wife both go, and then Des goes with us, to watch, and he gets bored and he goes and plays on the playground. But he's been kind of laid up, not being able to play on the playground with the stitches. But he got those out today, so I think he's pretty eager to get back on the old horse bicycle, if you will. And
you didn't mention on the pod last week.
I didn't talk about that?
No, you didn't mention it at all about what happened.
Yeah. So my kid went ass over tea kettle on his bicycle because he was riding in the grass and his friends were chasing him. And of course he goes ass over tea kettle, lands on the handbrake handle, which proceeds to rip open his thigh.
Oh,
and yeah, it was pretty nasty. And he had to have several stitches.
My son came running in. He said his friend was chasing. That was my son. My son comes running in and he goes, Dizzy's gonna die. It's like freaking out about it. So I was like, no, he's not gonna die. He's gonna be fine.
Nope, stitches came out this morning. I took him in to get him out this morning. He did pretty good with that. But nice. A couple of them had popped. So he had. So the bottom part of that scar is gonna look a little gnarly because it didn't quite heal the right way. But
shoot. Every time he's come over since the injury, like I could tell he's walking like a cowboy into into the saloon. He's very gentle.
He's got his chaps on. Did you see his haircut today when he came
Yeah,
over
he came
tonight?
in and immediately was like, "Check out my haircut! I got a mohawk."
He did. He got a
Check it
mohawk.
out. It's a good cut.
He wanted a mullet, so he compromised.
It's a good cut. It looks great.
It wasn't bad.
Nice. Love that
Anyway,
for you.
that's what's going on. Going on.
I think I'm lagging. I'm getting like major lag. Can you hear me, or is any mess up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then
You're fine.
Just disregard. So this past Friday in Nebraska, we had like the fucking scariest day of my life. Like 12 tornadoes dropped in the state of Nebraska. One was, I think, at one point rated like an F5 or an F3 or something crazy. Right there down the street from us.
F3s are bigger that day.
It's crazy. So it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but it's funny for me in that my wife, I'm a Californian. Since I've been in Nebraska, anytime we've got tornado warnings or watch, I freak out and they make fun of me. They go outside on the porch, they watch the tornadoes or try to see them. I'm like freaking out inside, panicking, looking out the windows, running around, making sure all our stuff's plugged in, thinking the world's going to end. And she tells me, like, it's tornado watch. Don't be nervous. Like, everything's fine. Stop being in California and a big baby. So I'm driving home from getting a haircut on Friday. And once a month, the tornado sirens will go off for like testing purposes. And those are on like Wednesdays. And so like randomly on a Wednesday, the sirens will go off and I'll be like, what the fuck? Oh, okay. It's testing. So I'm driving home on Friday and all of a sudden I start hearing the sirens go off. And I was like, oh, is it testing day? No, it's Friday. Is that real? And then I look at my phone and it was like tornado in your area, seek shelter. So I'm fucking driving home, like zipping through traffic as everyone in Nebraska was still driving the speed limit. And like freaking out, trying to get home to get the kids, get my son from school. My wife calls me and she's like, she was a little panicky too. Like, you need to get home now. I'm like, oh shit. Like, if you're freaking out when usually we're running out on the porch to watch this can't be good. And luckily everyone was safe in our world. We got home. Of course, when I pulled up, all of the neighbors were outside on the sidewalk, including you. Looking as this massive tornado, like a couple of miles up the street from us, was tearing through Elkhorn. And if you go and look at any of the videos online, it looks like it looks CG. It looks like it's out of like a movie, like a disaster movie. It's so wild. So like my mother-in-law was here watching the boys while I was working and getting a haircut. And like when I came home, she was also like face to the screen, panicking, watching like the news updates. So, and she is like the most chill person ever and like never freaks out about anything in terms of weather. And so when she was kind of freaking out, that was when I was like, okay, this is it. This is when I go. I'm going to get sucked up through the roof. Kids were kind of panicking. They ended up keeping all of our sons at the school in the tornado shelter. And when my wife went and picked them up, she said they all were like crying and freaking out because they all thought they were going to die
stuck
scared
for like an hour in the shelter with their heads between their knees.
Yeah, so it was right at the end of the day too. So they ended up staying like way later in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Anyways,
the crazy thing about it was like I've lived here all my life, and every once in a while a tornado gets close. You know, I think there was one time when I was a kid, like one hit in Council Bluffs, like and tore up houses in town. What happened on Friday? I've never seen anything like it.
Crazy.
It was crazy. There were so many, and they were like 4 in Omaha, like in the city.
And it's weird because like we're right in the middle, and the big one went right above us, and then there was another one that went under us, like right below split us, difference. There was one at the airport. Have you seen people's like they're in the airplane, like videoing from the window? It's freaking tornado. And there was a video I saw of a guy saying like they were rushing people from the airport into the stairwells. Was like that was the safest place in the terminals. But they were also still sending planes up in the air. Pilots were like, "We're getting the fuck out of here." So it was crazy.
Yeah.
So there was pandemonium in our household, and obviously thoughts and prayers for a lot of those folks that.
Yeah, a lot of people lost their homes, and luckily all the people that were displaced and all the people that were hit, and I think casualties are at one person died in Minden, Iowa,
I saw
and that was like two days later that happened, because it was pretty amazing. There was all that destruction, and
that's what they're saying. Like, it's insane that such amazing. A massive
especially
tornado,
considering what time of day it happened. I mean, it was like
right at rush hour,
right during the evening commute. It was crazy.
And it went through, like literally went through and destroyed neighborhoods. So it was like crazy that nobody in that neighborhood,
whole neighborhoods, passed. People, like people were getting pulled out of their basements. But
it's wild.
Wild. I mean, you can say what you want about people in the Midwest and how crazy they are, and they go and they watch a tornado. But if the tornado is actually close, they're smart enough to go downstairs.
It was just so crazy. I'm a Californian, where the land of earthquakes, where like you don't know it until it hits and then you're gone. You don't have a chance to freak out in your basement for a couple hours before the freight train hits. So, So let's jump into. We're kind of chatting a little bit longer than we usually do. Family life. Let's jump into my most excited segment, our 6 to midnight. This is the thing that gets us up in the morning. What nerdy news is out? New movie trailers. What type of weird, goofy nerd things that we're doing right now are just getting us excited about this week. So we've got another week full of lots of news and trailers and things. I know you've got a ton to talk about. Kind of, I guess, why don't we let you jump in and then I'll go over kind of my stuff second.
So yeah, there was quite a bit in the last 7 days. Obviously last week when we went over the 6 to midnight, we had a ton because we had 2 weeks worth of stuff plus CinemaCon. So there was a lot, but there was some news this week. And these are the kind of the things that I thought were probably the biggest takeaways. And I don't remember, I don't think we touched on this last week, but the news came out, I think, on the day we recorded last week, but they are officially actively working on Spider-Man 4 with Marvel and Sony. So that's good. Tom Holland is going to be back as Spider-Man. And he said that he is actively involved with the development of the movie. Obviously it's very early in pre-production, but he'll be back and they're involving him more than they have previously, which I think means he'll probably have a little bit more input in the story and whatnot, which is kind of cool. I think he's kind of earned that right now, as long as he's been playing Spider-Man. And we've talked before how excited we are to kind of get the non-Iron Man version of Spider-Man, the more street level Spider-Man, which seems like we're going to get. So that'll be
only
that'll be good to see.
6 movie appearances to finally get real Spider-Man. My God. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. And then they did announce that they are going to make a sequel to 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later, which will be called 28 Years Later, which obviously it's been a very long time, so that fits. Yeah. It is going to be directed by Danny Boyle once again, who obviously did those movies and is famous for doing movies such as Slumdog Millionaire and Trainspotting. And it's going to be written by Alex Garland, which I think is amazing. Yeah.
What do you think of Slumdog Millionaire?
Overrated, but it was good. I don't think it was like, oh, I'll give all the awards to Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah. Okay, we're on the same page. That's how I felt about it. It was like,
it's not a bad movie.
That's the same guy.
Forrest Gump, but
you leave Forrest Gump alone.
I won't.
The guy in Slumdog Millionaire, he was in the monkey fight.
Monkey Man, or yeah.
That's a movie that I haven't seen yet, but like I'm seeing a lot of stuff say that it was like really good.
Really good. They said the action it's super brutal and the action's really good. But it's kind of like, and obviously I made time to go see Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, but Monkey Man kind of had the same thing, like super limited release. Like listen, I'm a person that can go to movies at a certain time of day. And if the movie's not playing at that certain time of day, I'm going to have to wait because I got kid responsibilities and sports and stuff like that I got to do at work. And, anyway, so that's kind of why I haven't gotten a chance to see Monkey Man yet. But yeah, 28 years later, like I said, Alex Garland's going to write the script. Alex Garland, great movie maker, great. I think Alex Garland, if I remember right, did Annihilation, Ex Machina, if you didn't see that. But really creative, kind of off the wall sci-fi kind of stuff, if that's right. Unless I'm completely wrong on who it is that I'm talking about. Now I gotta look it up. Yeah, I totally got it wrong. Anyway, no, I was right. I was right. And then he just had Civil War just came out. It is the right person. I was right. Civil War just came out, and then obviously the other movie that I think he's most famous for is he did the screenplay for Dread.
Oh, give him all of the money.
Yeah, I knew who it was. I knew it was. Anyway, that's going to star. That's going to star Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Ray Fiennes. So I think that'll be cool. And then they're actually planning on doing a new trilogy of movies with 28 years later. So I think that's kind of neat too. Which if you've ever seen the original two, they're really great zombie movies. So, and then the last thing I was going to talk about, we kind of made fun of this. You and I were chatting about it, but new Russell Crowe movie trailer for The Exorcism. That's just called The Exorcism. Russell Crowe literally came out like a year ago. I think it was April, with The Pope's Exorcist, where he played a clergyman. And in this movie, he plays a clergyman. And he gets possessed by is it a prequel that we didn't know we needed? No.
I already that's what we know of. Separate, not related.
Separate movies. But yeah.
I texted you. I was like, he must have 2 years ago, watched an Exorcist documentary and was like, fucking sign me up for whatever Exorcist movies you can, agent. Thank you.
Yeah, I almost wonder if we're getting to the point in his career too where Russell Crowe's turning into Nicolas Cage, and a script just comes over on, and he's like, "Yep."
He's like, "That could be fucking cool.
I'll do it. God. I don't care what it is."
What happened to Nick Cage, man? He was the 90s. He couldn't miss. That man had 14 home runs in a row, and then the worst slate of movies of all time for this past, but I mean, 8 movies.
He's had a couple hits in the last few years. He had that one, the Massive Talent one where he plays himself. That was actually funny with Pedro Pascal. It was actually entertaining.
That was great.
He just had
gotten to a point now where people I wouldn't say totally like Keanu Reeves, but just people like him because
he's such an odd character.
He's
and then there's this rumor going around too that they're making Face Off 2.
Oh no, that's accurate. Okay, but
they've been saying that for years.
No, did I send you that this week?
Yes.
That was news that I wasn't even going to talk about. That it was confirmed that both John Travolta and Nick Cage are coming back for Face Off 2.
I don't even know how that'll work, but who cares? Just make it happen.
Face Off is a movie that I don't think we've ever talked about on this pod.
No, we have never talked about Face Off.
That I fucking love. This movie, literally, just like The Rock, it played in our house all the fucking time. Give me Face Off 2 and give me freaking God, what were their fucking names? What was his name?
Castor Troy.
Castor Troy Peach. Yeah. I could eat a peach for hours. Oh, that's the creepiest clip we'll ever have. Thank you, Face Off. Sorry, continue.
No, I'm done. You're good. Russell Crowe Exorcism movie. Carry on.
Let's go. Well, and I also said to you, as funny and goofy as it is, Russell Crowe being in another Exorcist movie, not related to the last one.
It's been a year. Yeah, I'll see it.
Take my money. I'm going to see it.
Did we watch that one? Some random night, we were like, hey, let's watch this. And
I
think so.
We put it on after one of the movies I had already seen it and you hadn't,
Okay.
I think. And we put it on just because it was
and you were like, I will totally watch this again.
Yeah, I fucking loved it. So I thought it was great.
It was pretty okay. It was pretty good.
Well, you took my Spider-Man news. I was going to talk about that, but
sorry, my bad.
But you're good. I have two things to talk about, so it's okay. One, you had sent this over to me, but this is a movie that it's near and dear to my heart. I'm excited for the new Tron movie. We just got some news today. Confirmed, Jeff Bridges is returning for Tron. So it's Tron Ares, slated to release in 2025. Actually, production started in January.
Yeah, they're already working there. They're already filming. Yeah.
Which there's a ton of characters in it actors in it that are like people are excited about. Obviously, Jared Leto it's called Tron Ares, and Jared Leto's character is Ares. So I don't know if like
the god of
he's
war.
The bad guy. The picture there's actually an image that came out too. Kind of looks like Tron, like the character Tron from Legacy, but like with red lights as his accent. So but Evan Peters, Cameron Monaghan. Evan Peters is the guy who played Ted Bundy, right? Was it Ted Bundy?
No, he played Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer. He was Jeffrey Dahmer, American Horror Story, Quicksilver. Yep. His character is not named. Then Cameron Monaghan is the dude, the redhead. That's the main character in the new Star Wars like Jedi movie video games.
Right. He was also on Shameless.
Shameless was on Gotham as like the Joker characters,
which he was great in that, by the way.
Yes, he was great. Actually, the sneaky actor in this that I'm like, oh, this is going to be good is Hassan Minhaj is in this movie, and I've talked about the Batman, Batman Unburied or whatever that audio story. Hassan Minhaj is the Riddler in that, and he's so amazing. So I'm excited for that. Tron news. I'm a little pissed off that our boy is not going to be in it. What's his name? What's the guy?
Gary Edlund.
Yeah, Gary Edlund. Sam Flynn. I thought he was going to take off. He was fucking awesome as the main character in that.
Well, he could pop up in there. You don't know that. They just announced Jeff Bridges today. So.
That's a good point. Well, I was hoping that he was going to be like a seminal main character. So
I understand.
But I could see like Jeff Bridges is back. That like, remember, I mean, obviously the bad guy in Clue in the last Tron was Jeff Bridges. So like he could be playing himself or a different character flashback.
True.
Anyways, the other news of more content that's coming out in 5 days, which I don't think, just based on what we've talked about, I don't think you watched the first 2 seasons or mini series of Tales of the Jedi. But on Disney Plus, they released the Star Wars episodes, which I think way back when we first started, it was one of my 6 to midnights. Tales of the Jedi. There was like incredible character building and just giving us stuff about Count Dooku that I never knew, and it really made the character of Count Dooku like fucking awesome to me now, when I used to think he was boring as hell. But it gave some context to some things from him. Anyways, Tales of the Jedi, it was a really good show. There's 2 seasons that have come out. But what comes out in 5 days is Tales of the Empire. So we are getting basically the same thing. They're short stories, different animations for each animation style for each of them. But it basically gives us like lore building of specific characters. I think we're going to get some Darth Vader character building. So that's going to be fucking awesome. There's going to be
I think
some
the trailer showed General Grievous, didn't it? In it,
Grievous is going to get his shine. And I think over the last probably couple of years, Grievous has really shot up in people's like they like him a lot more than when he originally came out. So between all of the Clone Wars show and the original Clone Wars show, like people have really started to like him. There's
when they were making Revenge of the Sith, do you know who was supposed to originally do his voice? Gary Oldman was supposed to do General Grievous.
What?
Yep.
Really?
That's a fact. There was something happened to Gary Oldman that prevented him from being able to do it, but he was originally supposed to be General Grievous.
That is shocking. Could you imagine Gary Oldman as terrifying bad guy? In Revenge of the Sith, you don't really get that from him, but like when they originally showed the character in that Clone Wars cartoon show, he was like Freddy Krueger or like Jason Voorhees. It's terrifying.
Right.
Gary Oldman would have been so great at that. Maybe that's why they gave him the weird like cough voice, like fucked up thing, because they didn't get the right voice actor for it.
So here it is right here. So Gary Oldman revealed he was not only almost a part of the movie, but he actually recorded some of the dialogue. George Lucas himself actually directed the session. I did a voice for Star Wars. It was General Grievous. What happened was something to do with union stuff and non-union stuff. I was not going to be the poster boy for breaking union rules. But so they had to get somebody else to do it because of it. He'd already recorded some of the lines.
There is General Grievous, Gary Oldman out there somewhere?
Yeah, somewhere.
Oh, come on, Lucas. Open up the ranch. Give us that. We need it. Maybe we'll get Gary Oldman's lines in this Tales of the Empire. So anyways,
that'd be cool.
That would be fucking sweet. So that's coming out in a couple of days. So for you Star Wars nerds, we're getting more freaking Darth Vader. We're getting, and there's a real quality to these Tales of shows. So, and it's all canon too. So this is going to add to the lore. There's, I think, a couple episodes about the Inquisitors. That's one of the newer things. I don't really care for the Inquisitors, but might make them cool. Might be like Count Dooku, where it makes a character that I thought was really lame super cool. So anyways, that's our 6 to midnight. We just talked forever. Why don't we jump into
good stuff? Absolutely. Yeah, let's jump into our big premiere movie of the week, the 2024 Netflix exclusive sci-fi epic Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. So The Scargiver is obviously a Netflix original, directed by Zack Snyder, written by Zack Snyder, Kurt Johnstad, and Shay Hatton, based on a story by Zack Snyder. The cast includes Sofia Boutella as Cora, also known as the Scargiver, Jimon Hansu as General Titus, Ed Skrein as Admiral Atticus Noble, Michael Huseman as Gunner, Duna Bay as Nemesis, the swordsman, like samurai cyborg swordsman, and the voice of Anthony Hopkins as JC-1435, among several other cast members.
All of those characters you just named, they don't ever like use their names other than Scargiver.
Really.
Like they rarely use all of those names you just dropped. I'm like, who was that? Who? Oh, I guess I didn't realize they had names. God.
Yeah, I know.
This movie
we'll talk more about that. They had a $166 million budget between part 1 and part 2 because they were filmed simultaneously. The movie had 21.4 million views in its first 3 days, which made it the #1 movie on Netflix. Though it did have 44.2 million hours viewed versus 54.1 million for part 1 during the first week on streaming. So as we do with any other big premiere, we'll talk about our thoughts on the movie, generalizing and recommend whether we think you should watch it or not, before we get to the spoiler warning, and then we talk about some more of the spoilery details of the movie. Initial thoughts. Again, just like I said with part one, this movie looks amazing. The cinematography is great. The settings are some of the like big space. I don't even need the CGI, just the scale and how everything looks, the planets, everything looks very real. The ship's flying. They did a great job with the effects. That's the good stuff.
Yeah, that's all of the good stuff.
That's the good stuff.
Gosh.
Honestly, most of the rest of the movie was a letdown. I feel like the first 45 minutes of part one was a glimpse of what could have been.
Agreed.
And then the next 4 hours or whatever it was of this epic has been nothing but a letdown since. So my just initial thoughts before we get to the spoilers is like, if you watched part one and you liked it and you want to see what happens next, you can go ahead and watch part two. But if you haven't watched either one, I would say don't waste your time.
Yeah. Wow. It's weird. I was hoping that part two was going to make part one like better, as if part two is good and it makes part one make more sense.
Yep.
But it definitely made part one like feel like the better movie of the
For sure.
two.
Oh, not even close. Like light years better.
So I mean, this is a tough one because it's on Netflix, so it's essential. I don't say free, because if you don't have Netflix, you can't watch it. But like,
right, but you're gonna have
everyone
if
has
you have
Netflix.
Yeah, you're not gonna subscribe to Netflix for this, I would hope.
For sure, no.
Don't.
But so like, it's I don't know. Yeah, it just wasn't what I wanted it to be, and I think I wanted to like these movies so bad, and it felt like I was like lying to myself, being like, this is better than it is, when it wasn't. So it's a story. I don't know. I just felt like it was a story of like, did you need to tell this story? Is this a story that we all had to hear? And it didn't feel like that at all. So, which is I think where that kind of let down. So I don't know. I mean, if it's on Netflix, I would suggest watch it if you like Zack Snyder, if you want to see visually stunning kind of sci-fi stuff. Some of the actors are cool in it. It did confirm for me from part one that what I said of like, they killed off Charlie Hunnam too soon. He should have been in this movie. So
you know what I thought was interesting too is because like, obviously this was done like it was one big movie, part one, part two of one big movie. Like when you have a part one and you have a bunch of main characters and then some of them die, then you do part two, you usually bring in a couple more characters to add to the cast that came from part one. This movie does not at all. It's the exact same people that are left over from part one. They don't add anybody new, right?
Yeah.
Like unless I missed that, but no, it was all the same people.
Yeah.
Which I thought was odd. You know, usually you add more characters.
Yeah.
But no, it's just a continuation of the first story.
Well, and I think the way they did it, because we talked about that with episode one, that like or part one, that we got some, like, they built this like super team, and like three of the characters, they did not, like, we didn't know anything about. They had basically zero lines in the movie, and they weren't really involved. And then this movie was like, all right, now it's their turn to now do them.
But they didn't do that much.
Yeah, they did like one short flashback, I think, for two of them, and that was pretty much it. So
it wasn't much. It was Anyway, yeah, I guess if you want to watch it on, go ahead. You already have Netflix. I mean, whatever. Anyway, spoiler warning. Spoiler warning.
Get out. This movie sucked.
It does suck. It's not good.
God.
That's disappointed. Like, you couldn't even stay awake.
I wanted to, so I had to go back and rewatch the last 40 minutes because I fell asleep.
Thanks for not inviting me to come watch it again.
Yeah. God, the one thing I'll say, this movie didn't have as many slow-mo moments that the first one did. It was like
It
every
still had
scene
too
was
many.
slow motion.
Still had too many. I was still calling them out. It was slow-mo again.
Yeah, they just like the one
You knew
thing that
what
I
was going to
like.
happen. You knew what was going to happen. And it took forever to get to the payoff because it was like, okay, they have this many days to prepare because the mother world is going to come back and they're going to kill everybody, right? And so basically they got 5 days to prep or whatever, and then they got to fight them off, and like that's the entire movie. You knew what the whole movie was going to be,
The
and it played
movie's
out
it's
exactly like how you thought it would.
it's a bug's life in space. It is literally a bug's life. It is
That's
the
pretty
story
good.
of a bug's life in space. You got one person character goes out and builds a super team of warriors to fight,
Yeah,
getting the crops and harvest ready,
yeah,
which we talked about it in the first movie that the scale felt weird and off. Like it was supposed to be this like epic, like not world war, but like war, like worlds against worlds or big empire against a planet. And it's literally like a group of like 30 people
yeah.
that's just
It's a
fighting
small
against one.
faction. It's a small faction basically fighting one ship of bad guys
Yeah.
that belong to the
Yeah.
mother world, right? Like we know, like, okay, so they introduced us to, I didn't even write him down on the cast list because he's in one freaking flashback scene, but he's in the first movie more, but he's like the main bad guy who has a lot, like the Scargiver's like adoptive father or something. And
Yeah.
he's not even in this movie except for one flashback. He's in the first one more.
He's like
And
the emperor, right? Like the
yeah, he is.
leader.
He's like, yeah, but he's not even in this movie. This is literally one battle against the little village on the moon and this one ship of bad guys.
Yeah.
And there were so many times where we were watching this where you and I were like, this decision is odd. Why didn't they do this?
Yeah.
Like, so Ed Screen's character, Admiral Noble, she fucking murders him at the end of the first one, right? And then you get this glimpse, like they're bringing him back, like they're going to rebuild him. But then
he gets 3D printed.
Yeah, they basically add new parts to him, but he's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like you even said, like put him in a cool ass helmet or some fucking awesome armor or do something, make him interesting.
Give us a cool bad guy. Yeah, he's just he has the
Give him a new haircut.
He looks like Lloyd Christmas. He's got Dumb and Dumber's Lloyd Christmas haircut. He's supposed to be this menacing bad guy, and he looks like a dweeb. Like he's not scary.
He didn't change anything about him whatsoever. Yeah. I mean, he's stupid.
Yeah.
And
the whole time I watched these movies, I just kept trying to put together like who would these characters have been if this was Star Wars? Like who would have been what time frame? And I try to think like, would this have been cool if it was Star Wars and like very specific, but I just couldn't. It's just the coolest character in both movies that ended up not being in any of the movies is Anthony freaking Hopkins. He is a battle droid, a protector droid that they're like a super legendary type of droid that protects like the royal family or like the royal children. And like everyone in the galaxy knows what these droids are. Their sole purpose is they're like fucking badass warriors. And the first movie, we get this cool little scene with Anthony Hopkins where he says, like, he tells you these things and he shows emotion as this droid. And you think like, okay, I'm interested in this character and he's probably going to be fucking badass. And then he disappears, and he literally shows up at the very end of the last one, like as credits are rolling. He's like standing in the field. And so I'm like,
And
fuck.
he fights like for 5 minutes, and it's not even that fucking cool.
Yes, in the second movie, they do the same thing. They don't use him at all in the entire movie, except he shows up for like the last 10 minutes for one, like he kills a couple of guys, and
it's mediocre at best.
Yeah, it wasn't even cool. There wasn't anything of like, oh, that was so fucking badass. It was just like, that was kind of lame.
Okay, so then you have it's the same thing with Duna Bay, who plays Nemesis. Her fucking name is Nemesis, right? She's a cyborg with like these lightsabers or whatever. These like she's like a samurai, and she fights the spider monster in the first one, right? Which is okay. It's okay. It's a cool scene.
Yeah.
So in this one, she's in a barn. She's fighting like 4 soldiers. She fucking gets killed.
Yeah,
like she kills a couple of them, and then she gets murdered. And it's like, we recruited these badasses to help us, and like, I don't know.
Yes, they were supposed to be these epically cool and badass warriors, and the trailer made me think that we were getting like a female Darth Maul type character, like just this badass, and it was not that at all. There was no character in this movie that was like, oh, that character is fucking cool. The droid was, and they didn't even have him in either of the movies. So
no, and they've talked about they're going to do R-rated super violent director's cuts of both of these movies. I don't know if I have any desire whatsoever to watch it, because I don't think there's anything that was badass enough anyway that I'd want to see it violent, you know?
Yeah, there's no way that this is going to be a franchise that continues. Like, that'll be...
I can't imagine like that it would. They talked about how he's already written like 2 more movies. I don't get it.
Visually, it looks really cool.
Yep.
But really, that's about it. Like, it doesn't have an epic score. Yeah,
talk to them.
Let them do the whole movie. Let them do everything else with the movie, not just the visuals. Because this was a swing and a miss, I'll say.
Usually we go through and we talk about like the whole plot of the movie and everything. There's not much. Evil Admiral comes back. The good guys go back to the Rebel Moon.
Yeah,
they think the bad guys will leave them alone. Turns out, no, that's not the case. So we've got 5 days to prepare. Let's come up with a plan. Let's train the villagers. Let's fight them off at the end. A bunch of people die on both sides. They blow up the Star Destroyer. And the village is saved. It. Don't think that they're not going to come back with a whole fucking fleet and just blow up the moon. I don't know. That's what I would do.
I thought that same thing of like, this movie is literally just one ship against this one group of rebels. It doesn't feel like Star Wars, where like the rebels is like this movement amongst multiple planets and peoples. It's literally just like a farm, and the farmers want nothing to do with it. It's just like this girl and the 5 teammates that she brought here too. So,
I mean, maybe it'll get to that if they do let them do the franchise. Maybe that's what it'll get to. Maybe it'll get to the bigger scale and the Star Wars level, and more space battles and things like that. But it's not that. It's trying to be a poor man's Star Wars. It's not.
No, it's just a poor man.
Just poor. It's poor. I don't know. I don't think we need to go into too much more. We talked about the details. We talked about the good. I mean, this is going to be the quickest movie review we've ever done. I'm going to give it a 2.5.
Yeah, this is definitely... It's a 1. I will never watch this movie again. Think about this. Like, the main character was so forgettable, not interesting, not relatable, and not someone that like we were rooting for. You know, like I didn't get behind that character of like, oh, she's fucking badass. Like,
you know, you're right. Like they kind of tell this backstory where she like is this horrible person, and then
yes,
like she gets this like she thought she killed the princess, but then it turned out she didn't. But she shot her.
yeah,
She's just lucky she
didn't know
die.
that.
It's not that she saved her. It's just that she didn't kill her because we don't know why. She had armor or something. I don't fucking know, man. Like it's
the
story's
Scargiver.
dumb. Yeah, story's
Scargiver
dumb.
character's like the biggest like badass like warrior in all of the Empire, who then gets assigned to protect the royal daughter as their like personal protector. You find that out in movie 1.
Yeah.
And then in movie 2 we get a flashback of basically a coup of all of the higher ups turning on the king and queen or emperor and empress.
Yeah.
And they kill them too. And then they turn, and after her parents are killed, the princess looks at Scargiver, and her like whole purpose is to protect this girl, and she has no idea this coup was going to happen. And then all of these like et tu brute, they turn on the emperor, kill him, and then they tell her like, you need to kill the daughter or like you're gonna die with them. And she just fucking
smokes her.
Yeah, puts the gun up and fucking takes her out. Like, and then they end up turning it and blaming on her and making her like the scapegoat of all of it.
Yeah. And then they let her leave.
Yes, she just
turns around and like, bye.
Easily got out of there.
It's like all those people in there, and they just let her walk out. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are dumb. The characters are not interesting. They started to make them interesting in part 1, and then they just forgot that they were interesting in part 2, and just got. I mean, 2.5 and a 1. Like, woof. Yeah, it's probably the worst movie we've done.
Charlie Hunnam should have been in there.
I'm glad he wasn't for his sake.
Yeah, because the first one was liked a little bit more. So,
yeah, I wouldn't watch it. I'll never watch it again. And I generally don't mind Zack Snyder movies. So,
yeah.
Anyway,
all right.
That's the review for Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. Don't see it. Save your time. Go watch Shogun.
Oh my god.
Go watch X-Men 97.
Yeah. Both. Do both of those things.
Do watch
Fallout 4 as well. There's good shows on right now to watch, man. We got a lot of good TV.
I've got one episode left in Invincible, and then I can move on to probably finishing Fallout.
Dude.
So, yeah.
The actor in Fallout, the dude who plays the ghoul, he's like a cowboy.
Walton Goggins.
Dude, he's so fucking cool. Like, I love the actor. Dude. He's so fucking cool.
Did you ever watch Justified with Timothy Olyphant?
Yes, he's the bad guy.
Awesome. He's so awesome in that show.
Yeah, he's great as a villain.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
that takes us to the end of Rebel Moon Part 2 and leads us into my favorite segment. There can be only 5.
Only 5.
So we're going full on brand this week. When we did Rebel Moon Part 1, it was part of our year-end stuff. So we didn't have anything to do with the movie or Zack Snyder. Mm-hmm. So we decided that this week we were going to do our top 5 Zack Snyder movies and our bottom 5 Zack Snyder movies. Because just like M. Night Shyamalan, he hits and he hits hard and then he falls hard. See, last week we kept saying, man, we should have done bottom 5. Well, this week we're going to do top 5 and bottom 5.
Doing both.
We're doing both. So let's start with the good. Let's end with the negative. Let's just shit on it at the end. So these are my top 5 Zack Snyder movies. At number 5, I have Zack Snyder's Justice League. Make sure everybody understands that is the 4 hours director's cut version of Justice League. Um, totally different movie than the original, like completely different. And I know there was all the talk about the only reason that movie was like that was because Joss Whedon finished directing it and stuff like that. Those are things that we'll never know if they're facts or not.
Yeah.
But it is generally believed that that's the case. And based on seeing Zack Snyder's Justice League, I tend to believe it. Totally different character development, especially for people like Cyborg, like totally different movie because of that. The Steppenwolf's completely different.
Totally. He's so much cooler.
He's so much cooler. He's a total badass in the director's cut. Obviously, Superman coming back is a lot different when he comes back and gets resurrected. Yeah. Totally different. It's just a much better story and a much better movie. Zack Snyder's Justice League. I had number 5, and number 4 I had Man of Steel. We've talked about Man of Steel quite a bit on this. I think the casting of Henry Cavill was great. I liked the action in that movie. I thought the casting all around was good. I think Amy Adams was a good Lois Lane. Michael Shannon was an awesome General Zod. I liked the action. I liked the story. I liked the new origin of Batman. Obviously, they went big with Batman's parents and Kevin Costner and Diane Lane, which we know the new one's not going to do that. They're going to be a little bit more, character actor kind of people. But I liked it. I thought Man of Steel was a good movie. Obviously, we wish we could have got more Henry Cavill Superman. So I had Man of Steel number 4. And number 3, I had 300. I think we've talked about 300 quite a bit. I think Zack Snyder's top 3 movies, in my opinion, are all pretty close. I think all 3 of them are really good. I have a hard time ranking which one I would do 1, 2, and 3. I kind of went by rewatchability on which ones I watched the most. So 1 and 2, I watch more than 300. That's why I had 300 at number 3. The cast is awesome. The art direction's amazing. Obviously, everybody knows the story. It's cool. And then, Gerard Butler as Leonidas is just
fucking badass.
Knocks it out of the park. So I went back and forth on what I had at number 1, and I still am going back and forth on it, but I'm going to say number 2, I have Watchmen at number 2. I think Zack Snyder did a pretty amazing job turning a graphic novel and a series of, comic books into a amazing on-screen version. I think he did things that nobody else probably could have done. It was a very tough story to relate, and I think he did a great job of it. Yeah. The visuals are great. The changes he made to the story, especially the ending, I think were correct, and I think it's better because of it. I think the cast is just dynamite. I think he nailed everybody in the cast. I mean, they're all perfect for their roles. That me being somebody who had read Watchmen before I'd watched the movie. And it's not household names. This isn't a bunch of A-listers that he cast in this movie. But as all good as they all are, Patrick Wilson and Carla Gugino and Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Jackie Earle Haley is a fucking home run as Rorschach. And
fucking badass.
That he made the movie awesome.
Yes.
And then at number 1, or I would, could be this right up there with Watchmen. Number 1, I had Dawn of the Dead. I think it's one of the greatest zombie movies ever made. I think the original George Romero Dawn of the Dead is its equal, and that's one of the greatest zombie movies ever made. I mean, in the history of zombie movies, they are 1A and 1B, because he remade a classic and he made it in his own version. And it was like the movie that gave you fast zombies, and it was something nobody'd really ever done before, and it was fucking awesome. And
fucking terrifying.
It's amazing. The music in that movie is great. The violence is crazy. Again, it's a bunch of non-A-list actors, and man, they just kill it in that movie. And it's got an awesome story, awesome ending. The whole thing's cool. But I had Dawn of the Dead number 1. So
love that. Our list is different. I, like you, switched my top 3 multiple times. And I think I'm going to stick with what I originally wrote down. I switched it up, and then I'm going to go back to what it was. I have I do have one honorable mention in my top 5. I have the Justice League Snyder cut. Just a, like you said, totally different movie, infinitely better. Actually, like felt like a cinematic experience when that came out. Like me and my buddy Matt and Steph, it came out, we sat down for like the full 4 hours and watched it in one night. Like we were so juiced, and it was good the whole time. Like you said, characters were great. Felt like Bruce Wayne Batman was how he was in Batman vs Superman. And it just didn't feel like the total shit show that was the other one. And then I've got my number 5 movie, which I mentioned this last week, and I'm like, I'm gonna put it in my top 5 because I think it's fucking awesome. Is Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch is such a, like, maybe not, I would say like a cult like following, but like not a lot of people know about it. And after we talked about it, I watched a couple like YouTube nerd reviews about it, and people fucking love this movie like I do. It's so cool. There's a lot of things that you're seeing on camera or in the scene are like, it's supposed to be, I don't know how to explain. It's not like Inception where it's like a dream within a dream, but it's supposed to represent certain things that are going on in real life at this insane asylum. So it's fucking cool. Sucker Punch is badass. If you like anime shows, like, you would fucking love this movie. You need to check it out since you haven't seen it, which I don't think it's streaming anywhere. You can only watch hard copy.
I own it.
DVDs.
I've seen it. It's just been, I don't remember it. We talked about that last week. Like, I remember seeing it when it came out. I don't remember anything since, but I own it. I have the DVD.
Yeah. Well, and at the time, there was a lot of actors in that movie that weren't big at the time, or they hadn't made it yet. Like Oscar Isaac being one. Yeah. Like, he's one of the main bad guys in the movie. So, Sucker Punch, number 5. Number 4, I had, which a lot of people probably would disagree with this, but I had Batman versus Superman, the extended cut or the director's cut. Again, just like Justice League, when the studio didn't cut all of the stuff out of the movie, it's actually a good movie. Like, there's stuff in it that make way more sense. There's way less plot holes. Batman is fucking cool. Ben Affleck's Batman is like the most comic book accurate looking Batman there has ever been. And I actually really like that movie. And when I was going through this list, I was like, all right, I need to go in order of watchability and what I'll watch. And that's a movie that I do put on every couple of months randomly if I just need a movie. And then my number 3, this was, like I said, my top 3 are almost equal depending on the day and the mood. I like all 3 of these movies. These are some of my favorite movies overall of all time, not just of Zack Snyder. But number 3, which I originally had this at number 1, switched it around. I have 300 with King Leonidas, Gerard Butler. This movie is like a man's movie. Like, this is like the ultimate dude movie. Badass Spartan warriors all jacked and fucking fighting against millions of Persians. It's so cool. There's so many great lines in it. Visuals are stunning. It looks like a comic book. If you ever read the original comic book that Frank Miller wrote, the visuals from the comic Zack Snyder did in the movie that just were incredible. So lots of cool kind of cinematography and tricks and things that they did that were comic booky, and they're just chef's kiss. I will watch that movie once or twice a year, all the time. It's a great movie. Number 2, at one point I wanted to put this at number 1, but I switched it back. I love this movie. The Watchmen is one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, in my opinion. I hate that the book enthusiasts didn't like the movie or hated it.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
It was so good. It was a long movie. It was long enough to give the story what it needed to breathe, to hit on all of the like main details from the book that mattered. Rorschach was just incredible.
Incredible.
Dr. Manhattan was just such a he he's such a strange character in the comic when you're reading. Like he doesn't see the world how we see it. He sees it from the viewpoint of someone who has all the answers. And he doesn't necessarily understand those answers or why. And so, or knowing those answers means he doesn't understand everybody else and the decisions they make. And so he's such a weird character in the comic. And I thought the movie did a really good job of conveying that, of like that he is just this all-powerful being that is weird. He's lost touch of his humanity. Obviously, all of the characters in Jeffrey Dean Morgan's the comedian is fucking amazing in that. Super underrated, like acting move or moment for an actor. Like he just captured that character of just so well. I fucking love The Watchmen. The ending of it when Rorschach is like basically telling Dr. Manhattan like to kill me, and he's just like, do it, like, and he's crying when he does it. That tear gets me teared up every time. It's so powerful. And the dude who played Rorschach in that was like, that was his role. Like he fucking owned that. The Watchmen. You should watch that movie at least once a year. If you haven't seen it in a while, go watch it. It is good. The other thing about that movie I think is really great is the soundtrack. Like that it really puts you in a certain mindset. Like, I mean, it opens up back in the kind of olden times. There's Bob Dylan, Times Are Changing. It's playing. It just kind of, for me, when that started playing as the movie started, it was like, it put me in the mindset of like, oh, this is going to be good. When is Owlman? He's the Owlman?
He's a night owl?
Night Owl. When he's up in the like owl mobile and he's making out with Spectre, Silk Spectre, or whatever. And Hallelujah starts playing. Like that was just such a, I think they did a good job with the soundtrack to hit. There was like Vietnam War music in it when they're over in Vietnam. Like it was fucking awesome. And then number one, which a lot of people would say I'm crazy. You're going to be mad because I left a movie out, but my number one Zack Snyder movie I have is Man of Steel. This is like the ultimate Superman movie that I don't think was appreciated at the time it came out like it should have been. And I think nowadays people fondly remember Henry Cavill as Superman and they see him as our Superman. But dude, we got a Superman movie with a Hans Zimmer Superman score. Get out. I love this movie. I put this on all the time. It's just one of the coolest freaking Zack Snyder movies ever. The Hans Zimmer score. There's actually just learned this past week, I didn't realize there is on the Man of Steel like soundtrack or album or whatever it is with the scores, there's a 25-minute like Hans Zimmer original sketchbook is what it's called.
Really?
Sketchbook of basically when he was writing Man of Steel. And so it's obviously it has a lot of the stuff that ended up being like the main themes in the movie, but there's a ton of stuff in it that you could tell he was like playing around with sounds and like what could Superman sound like or what should Superman's themes be. It's super worth a listen if you haven't listened to it. It's like 27 minutes long or something. It's fucking awesome. So if you like Hans Zimmer, if you like movie scores, if you like Superman, if you're driving for a while or you got to do some work for 30 minutes or so, put it on for the background. It's worth it. Man of Steel, my number one Zack Snyder movie ever. And I didn't have Dawn of the Dead in here because it's just not a movie that I watch very often. I've watched it twice. So,
and you're not a horror buff like I am either, so I get it.
For sure. All right. Why don't we jump into
shit?
Zack Snyder's worst movies of all time. I want you to go first on this one because
I went first on the last one.
I know, but
I'll go first again.
I just talked a lot. I want to hear your thoughts, and I think
all right,
our
Snyder
list
fanboy
might be different. So,
all right, my bottom 5 Snyder movies, or the top 5 worst Zack Snyder movies. At number 5, I had Army of the Dead. Army of the Dead was okay. Like it had its fun moments.
Yeah.
It was kind of entertaining. Some of the set pieces were pretty cool. I'm a big fan. I like Batista. The badass.
Great.
Right? The rest of the cast was okay. I didn't love them. Some of them were all right. It was forgettable. I watched it once. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. It was all right. If they made another Army of the Dead movie and Batista found a way to survive, I'd maybe watch it. But it's okay. It's all right.
There is a spinoff movie about the
Army of Thieves.
Yeah, that wasn't a Zack Snyder movie, right?
No, I mean he produced it, but it was a spinoff, like a prequel about the safecracker guy.
Yeah, that's
I didn't give a shit, so I didn't watch
it. Same.
Anyway, Army of the Dead at number 5. At number 4, I had Rebel Moon Part 1. At number 4.
Okay.
The first 45 minutes we talked about, I really enjoyed that movie. I really liked what we were getting. And then it turned into a letdown. And Rebel Moon Part 2 made me appreciate watching Part 1 more.
Yeah.
Because it was so much better than Part 2 was.
Yes.
We've already kind of talked about Rebel Moon Part 1. We've kind of already dived into that, so I don't need to go into more detail, but that Rebel Moon Part 1. At number 3, I had Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. At number 3. I do not like that movie. I do not consider the director's cut as an actual movie I can rank, because it wasn't released on its own. It was just a director's cut. Like Zack Snyder's Justice League was totally different movie. Like if you look at his filmography, they are listed as 2 different movies, Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Batman versus Superman is just a director's cut. It's different. So I didn't rate that the same way, but the director's cut is a much better movie and would not be on this list. But the original Batman versus Superman, I do not care for. It's the movie that made me see Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. It's the
God damn it.
It has that stupid Martha scene in it. I did not care for that movie. I did not care for that movie whatsoever.
There were some decisions that were made in that movie that could have been a little bit better.
Head scratchers. Yes, head scratchers. And I felt bad that was the movie where we got Ben Affleck's Batman, because I liked Ben Affleck's Batman. Yeah. I felt bad that was the sequel we got with Man of Steel. Like I felt bad that there was a lot of things going for that movie. Man, it just didn't work out. They just didn't put it together very well.
I think it's because I was looking up stuff for this list today, but I saw today that at one point, like Zack Snyder had, I don't want to say in talks as if like he was actually like they were making it happen, but he was talking with Leonardo DiCaprio at one point about potentially being Lex Luthor, which would have made totally different fucking movie.
Yeah, it would have been totally different.
And Tom Cruise was like trying to actively like petition for himself to be in the movie as a character, but I can't remember what it was. Damn it.
He could have been Lex Luthor too. I don't care. Anybody else.
Yes, the drywall behind me could have been better. So
bring Kevin Spacey back. I don't even give a shit. I know he's a piece of shit human, but he's better. Put that on a tape. That was number 3. At number 2, I had the theatrical release of Justice League. I fucking hate that movie. It's
Oh
awful,
my
and
God,
it's
it's
number
so
2.
bad.
It's
Yep.
so I don't know. I saw it in the theater and I was like, what did they do? Why is this here? You listen, like we've talked about this. Henry's an awesome Superman. Ben Affleck is an underrated Batman. He did a great job as Batman. I didn't mind Ray Fisher's Cyborg at all. I think Gal Gadot was a great Wonder Woman. I like Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I mean, Ezra as Flash in that movie. I don't even mind him as Flash. The entire characters that made up the Justice League, there were no problems with them whatsoever, and the movie is still dog shit. It's
That's
so
fucking
fucking
awful.
bad. It's
It's
awful.
It's a movie that was released in theaters that was literally patchworked together. Like they
Oh man.
made a movie out of, let's make a different movie out of a movie that's been filmed and take scenes, and then we'll obviously do some reshoots. But like it was, you could feel what scenes were like. Ben Affleck's Batman, there's 2 different versions of him in that movie. Like there's the scenes where he's serious and Zack Snydery, and then there's the scenes where he's goofy and jokey and like doesn't have a beard, and it's fucking,
it's not good. God. And I for sure would have thought that would be number 1 on this list until we saw Rebel Moon Part 2. And it's so bad. It's not a good movie. We already talked about why. Anyway, that's my list. Those are my bottom 5 Zack Snyder movies.
Outstanding. I'm actually glad that you went ahead of me because you reminded me of a movie that I had, and it allowed me to take one movie off this list. Army of the Dead, I had it at my number 5, but you reminded me of another movie, so I actually took it off because I almost just went with 4 movies for my top 5 bad Zack Snyder movies. I was just going to do 4 because I didn't want to put Army of the Dead on there because I liked it. Like you said, I liked Batista.
It's okay.
It was cool when it released. It was like, it was, I don't know. It was like hey, there's a new Zack Snyder movie that's coming out. It's supposed to be really good.
That was like right in the middle of COVID too, wasn't it?
Yeah, we all got together and watched it. Like it was Halloween time, I think. So, I actually like that movie, but I had it on my list because like you had said, I will never watch it again. I will never put that movie on again. But it's not on my list. It's been replaced by the number 5 worst Zack Snyder movies of all time, or bad movies of Zack Snyder's. Number 5, Batman vs. Superman theatrical release. I was like angry as I watched this movie in theaters because I could tell, like, you knew something was not right. Like, they literally set up plot points and things that they never even touched or looped back to. Like, there's so much in the movie that was like, what the fuck is going on?
And there's just too much in the movie anyway. Like, if you're gonna do a Batman versus Superman movie, do a Batman versus Superman movie. If you're gonna do a Death of Superman movie, then do a Death of Superman movie. It needs to be bigger. It needs to be a grander scale. Like, that battle needs to be more epic than what it was. Like, Death of Superman, like the graphic novels right here on the shelf above me, like that's like a 12-issue arc, and literally like half of them are them fighting.
Yeah, most of it is them fighting.
It's like a Dragon Ball Z series. Like, it's just them fighting for like 6 issues, and that's what it should be if you're going to do Death of Superman.
Yes. Yeah, it was. They tried to do Death of Superman. They tried to do Dark Knight Returns. They tried to do all these comics that he loves. So I get that side of why he did it, because like, these are his favorite stories of them, and if he's got a shot or a chance to make a Batman or Superman movie, he's going to do them. But they just don't work in the timeline and like where we were with getting to meet the characters and then having to fucking smash it all in one. So number 5, Batman vs. Superman theatrical. Number 4, I had Legends of the Guardians. I don't know if you ever watched this movie. It's actually
I've never
ranked.
that owl movie. I don't think
Yeah,
I've ever seen it.
it's the most random. It's the most random thing that's on Scott or
Like
Zack Snyder's fucking list. Like,
the Guardians of Gahul or something like that,
yes,
isn't it?
it's a fucking like Pixar animated type movie about like battle owls. It's so weird, and it's just the most random thing that Zack Snyder did. I have no idea why he made this movie. It's not like a horrible movie, but it's like it's the most uninteresting thing that Zack Snyder's made. Um, like no one would guess that that's a Zack Snyder movie. It's not. It's not good. If you've got little kids, they might like it, but even that,
Okay.
it's kind of adult-y for battle owls that are a cartoon.
So
Anyways,
random.
it's so fucking random. That is my number 4, Legends of the Guardians. My number 3, I had Justice League, the theatrical cut. At number 3, I know a lot of people had it at number 1, but in terms of the other 2 movies that are left, like watchability, I would probably go watch the shitty.
You know what? That's a fair point.
Like
that's a fair point.
It's not a good movie, and I did hate it. The second I saw freaking old CGI mustache on Henry Cavill in the theater, I was like so pissed. But the trailers made it seem like all there was going to be was black suit Superman, which I know people like are super 6 to midnight about from the comic.
Yep.
But I liked that. That was the only thing about the theatrical release of Justice League that was good, was like the super bright red and blue that we finally got of Superman. But anyways, other than that, that movie freaking sucked, just like Batman vs. Superman. It felt like it in the movie. We already knew what had happened behind the scenes. We knew about the reshoots. And so watching it, it was just like, this is a fucking clipped together hot garbage mess that makes no sense, and I want my money back. But I would watch that movie again before I will ever watch these 2 movies. Number 2, worst Zack Snyder movies ever. Rebel Moon 1. We talked about it. It's little did we know it was going to be the better of the movies. When we originally saw it, we were like, oh man, I hope part 2 picks this up and makes this cool.
Yeah.
Little do we know how lucky we were with part 1.
That's what I said. Yeah, it made me appreciate the 45 minutes that were worth the shit.
Yeah, the opening 45 minutes that mattered. And then my number 1 worst Zack Snyder movie of all time, Rebel Moon 2. It just, God,
By
both of those movies. But like I mentioned, I was like lying to myself wanting to like these movies. It's been a while, other than like The Flash with the return of Michael Keaton Batman. There has been like not very many movies that like I want to like, and I want to will these into being good and interesting.
Right.
But I will never watch them again. I have no interest to.
Kyle, I'm with you on that, because like these are movies that I wanted to like so much, and it's but at the same time, I don't know if I had high expectations, because I never saw like a trailer and said, oh, that looks amazing. But like you want to like it.
Yeah, we had one of us or both of us, I thought, had it listed on our like top 5 most anticipated movies. I think
we
or
both
something.
Did. Yeah, for the
like
back
really
half of the year.
High. Like we had it high on our list.
We had part 1 on there. Neither one of us had part 2 on there, because we'd already seen part 1 by that point.
Yeah.
On our anticipated.
So, but yeah, Rebel Moons, they're lame. Just say that. So
it's funny, right? So I think we agree Zack Snyder's best movies are Watchmen, 300, Man of Steel, right? Like I like Dawn of the Dead, but so even if we add Dawn of the Dead to that list, okay, so those are 4 movies. They're all a remake of a zombie movie, comic book adaptation, comic book adaptation, comic book adaptation. the man cannot make original content.
Dude, I was thinking that before we started filming of like, wow, really the movies of Zack Snyder's that are like seminal, remembered as really good are like The Watchmen and 300 are essentially like direct adaptations of the comics, with the exception of the end of The Watchmen. But like even 300, like scene for scene, shot for shot, it's like, here's the panel, that's your storyboard, now put that in the movie. So like that's not really original. Sucker Punch is definitely original. Man of Steel, I would say, like, I know there are like things from Superman comics that he was putting in that, but it didn't feel like it was like a direct adaptation of a specific like comic, if that makes sense. So but definitely 300 and Watchmen. So basically his best movies were not even his ideas.
Yeah, makes you wonder, maybe he needs to stick with that for him.
Dude, just pick a fucking super badass comic book and make it a movie.
It doesn't even need to be comic anything. He could do maybe he could just do a regular book, you know? He could do some sci-fi epic book or something and just not do original content. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Anyway.
We talked about his movies like have a very specific feel, like you're watching a Zack Snyder movie of how it looks.
You feel like you're in a different world.
Yeah, and the early movies, that was a cool thing, and ever since like probably the Justice League, it's felt like this is not cool anymore,
Yeah, I don't know what it is, because we talk about what the world of Rebel Moon looks like and how cool it looks. It's just the execution around it is a challenge. Lame-o. Anyway, that brings us to the end of episode 46 of the Movie Dads podcast. Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. Don't watch it.
Terrible movie.
If you're watching this on YouTube, please click that like and subscribe. Click that bell so you can get notifications when new episodes come out, which is 9 a.m. on Wednesdays, Central Standard Time on YouTube and many podcast networks such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. You can also see some of our short clips and videos on social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We'll be back next week for episode 47. I can't believe you haven't seen it, Kyle. One of my favorite movies, the 1992 spy thriller dramedy. Robert Redford starring Sneakers. I've never even heard of until I talked about it.
I had never heard of that movie.
I know.
It popped up whenever I was looking up like best rated spy movies, but I was like, I have no idea what this is. So I'm interested to see if other people.
Phil Alden Robinson, starring Robert Redford, Dan Aykroyd, Ben Kingsley, Mary McDonnell, River Phoenix, Sidney Poitier, and David Strathairn.
All right, that's a good lineup. I like that. River Phoenix, Dan Aykroyd, Robert Redford. Give it to me. I'll watch that. I'm interested to see if other people like remember it fondly like you do. It's kind of like when you made me watch Under Siege.
I named my cat after that movie.
Under Siege or Sneakers?
No, I had a cat named Sneakers. Swear to God. True, when I was a kid.
It's amazing.
I was like a 10-year-old with a...
for the next video.
It was like
Sneakers.
13 years old with a cat named Sneakers. Named after a freaking Robert Redford spy movie.
Fucking outstanding.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.